Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to begin with a moment of silence for the following. Chad Hawk, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Betty Sullivan, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Judith Watson, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Francis Haskins, a former employee of the North Syracuse Central School District. Charles Abalencia, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Leon Barnard, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. John DeJazer, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. And Nancy Stark, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Thank you.
President, could I just have 2 moments?
Yes.
Personally, as I again thank the administration here at North Syracuse to give us an opportunity each meeting to have a moment of silence for people who came before us, and also when you put the flag half mast. Judith Watson. Worked with her many years. She was a teacher at Gillette, very much involved in our science program, which Mr. Crabtree was in the 80s and 90s. And she was a wonderful lady who gave a lot to the school district. Francis Haskins, I wish Don was here, 100 years old. She lived to be 100 years old, phenomenal teacher at Allen Road, gave a lot. Was selected as one of the best teachers in the United States. Pete Leon Barnard, nicknames Pete, phys ed teacher. He was at Cicero L. I think he was at Smith Road, and he finished his career at Gillette. Just a lot of energy. All the students enjoyed him. He gave a lot to education. John DeJezer, amazing man. One of the best art teachers that we ever had at in our school district. I do believe he also was chair of the art department, and he loved to read. And in his obituary, that's what he would like people to donate to the North to Noble. And the last one started right here at Pitcher Hill when I was teaching. She was a student teacher. Right here, and then the next year she got a job at Roxboro Road Elementary, and she continued her whole life at Roxboro and gave a lot to that school. I just think it's important that these people are the foundation of this school district, and we should remember them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree. Okay, we have a treat this evening, because any presentation by Lisa Goldberg's a treat. So doesn't matter what you talk about, come on forward. I know you're talking about SEL today, but.
I mean, now you set the bar.
Well, you set the bar high. That's why we have nobody following you anymore. We have complaint.
You can just turn on the microphone, Lisa. Button.
Oh, hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I have to be honest with you. I brought a card so that I don't talk for an hour because I am so excited about what we're going to share with you. I want to put you in a little time machine and bring you back about a year, precisely a year. We had just started this restorative practice work, and all of the information that we are going to share this evening was not yet built last year. We were just at the beginning. So this is really our purpose today is to really bring you sort of up to speed as to what was done last year, because I believe we were here in April, and give you some insight into what's happening this year, and then talk about what's next. Just to quickly remind you, here's our team. On the left is Jordan Brianzi, and then we have, and she's a restorative practice specialist. at Rox Middle. In the next photo is Jessica Nabawanek, who's the Family Engagement Specialist at Rox L. And next to her is Amanda Pollard, the Family Engagement Specialist at Rox Middle. The divine and elegant Natalie Walters, who is the Restorative Practice Specialist at Rox L. And because they made me put a picture in of me, that's Mabel. She's really the crux of the team. That's my dog. So again, our overview tonight is we're going to kind of take you back down memory lane and firmly ground you in the foundation of this work. We'll then talk a little bit about the intention and meaning and impact with some reflection on the work. We'll update you on the restorative practices that are in place this year and moving forward. And then we'll really end with kind of the lens on all of this work. So this is perhaps one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King. And the idea that you take the first step and then you have to trust that the other steps will be there. And so two things. First of all, I want to thank you, the Board of Education, and specifically our superintendent and our associate superintendent, Chris Leahy and Dan Bowles, for really having a tremendous amount of faith in us and in this work and supporting this work. That means everything. And I also want to say a giant thank you to both Natalie and Jordan for being courageous, for being intrepid, and for being relentless. I think we owe much of our success to their beautiful work.
So just as a quick refresher, restorative practices, the science of relationships. We use the social capital window often as a visual that we present to staff, and it was used in a lot of our trainings. Restorative practice is something that you should be doing with each other. It's not punitive, it's not neglectful or permissive. It has high accountability and high support so that we're supporting our students and holding them to high standards to promote the highest level of success. Just a quick review of Rox Middle last year. What we've realized is that each campus has its own culture, its own community, and the way that we have led this work within each building is different. The way that certain things take hold, the needs of the building are different. So some of the things that I've done or the directions that we're going at Rox Middle may look a little different than Rox Elementary. Last year, we were trained in restorative practice. We started classroom circles for all 5th and 6th grade students at the middle school. They were getting restorative practice as a class once every 4 days as a special. So that we would sit in circles and discuss various topics as proactive circles. We used justice circles last year. We just briefly got into those at the middle school. We were trained a little bit later in the year. These were typically used when students had disciplinary measures that needed harm that needed to be repaired. So we use those circles as the basis for repairing that harm. Families were involved, students who were harmed were involved, and we started that process. That was really the beginning of that. We started listening circles with parents, staff, and students. Those were really based around listening and hearing. They weren't really there for problem solving. It was like, please show up and tell us what you're thinking. This is a safe space. We really want honesty and openness so that we can hear what you need and take that back and really sit with it. We started lunch groups and we did other parent circles as designated. Last year, we really started the process of crisis support, what conflict mediation looked like with restorative practice. And we really honed in on what professional development we were working towards.
Can I just, this is maybe a good time, just lunch group. Can you tell me what that is?
So,
What that looks like, I guess. I think I know what it is.
Yep. So lunch groups really were consistent groups that met with myself, with the family engagement specialist or the promise zone specialist. They also occur with counseling staff. They're usually like social groups to help students meet other children, to form new relationships. Sometimes it's to work on strategies for anger management. The lunch groups can take on various means, but it's really just a consistent way to meet with a staff that you trust and a small group of students to build skills.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt your
Yep, no, yep.
cadence, but I thought it was a good time to ask that.
No, we would like to just kind of say this is a conversation. And so if there's something that you see, please go ahead and interrupt, because that's the best way for us to kind of help everybody get on the page and understand what we're talking about. So let's go back to Roxboro Road Elementary. And when we saw you last April, the previous summer had been our summer PD with IIRP. And that's where Jordan and I really got our feet wet as your new restorative practice specialists. Classroom circles last year were a push-in entity. And this was really great because if you all remember, we were coming back from the pandemic. This was a wonderful way for us to really sit down and start to get the students working on community. Many of our students in the elementary school had not been in community for quite some time. And that was definitely felt and heard and seen. We had what we called re-entry and handoff meetings, and that was when we had students that were struggling in the day because of those social misdevelopments that weren't happening. So we had about 11 of them last year where parents would come in and meet with us, and we would give them a couple of goals and a couple of, when we come in tomorrow, this is what it's going to look like. Justice circles look a little different in the elementary. Mr. Matala was very hands-on in making sure that teachers, myself, and the student were meeting with him in a very proactive measure, again, to just kind of reset whatever expectations were. Our parent circles were in coordination with our counseling team that you all know worked very, very hard. And most of those circles were about changes in program or things that we needed to do to continue to provide students, especially students that were designated with IEPs, additional supports for them to be successful. And perhaps the one thing that was really wonderful to see in action last year was this role model integration. We had 6 fabulous students that started it off, and it ended up catching like wildfire in the whole 4th grade. And we're able to see it again, where the 4th grade comes down and they help the younger students, specifically in the kindergarten. This year, we've been working with the pre-K program, and they get to be role models. Big sister, big brother type of mentality. So again, that's a restorative concept that is continuing to work. You also saw the restorative language in the committee work for the dress code as well.
So the intention in the meeting behind restorative practices is it's not a thing that we do, it's who we are. It really is something that seeps into all of the things that make us who we are and are moving forward in a way that's meaningful and intentional. It's what we do in the classroom. It's our philosophies, the committee work that we're doing, how our buildings are growing and improving and supporting our students, district-wide initiatives, the professional developments. They do not have to just be on their own. They can seep into all of the professional development in the way that it is delivered. And now the community outreach part of that, which our wonderful family engagement specialists have led so much of that, that we're really trying to bring the community into this intention with restorative practice in our district. So currently at Roxboro Road Middle School, the classroom circles are still ongoing as a special once every 4 days. I've kind of skipped down so far we've engaged in 440 of them with 235 5th graders and 252 6th graders. We are continuing to do re-entry and justice circles. Really, those have really picked up this year. Almost every student who was on an out of school suspension has had a re-entry meeting, and that typically is parents, family, counselors, teachers. So it's everybody who is impacted or works with that student. And we really come up with a way to re-enter that student back into the classroom and the school community in a positive way that almost always involves a plan for reentry, setting up specific measures on what we are going to do to make that student successful and to decrease hopefully decrease that offense will happen again. Really the biggest thing from last year to this year is that every student in the building now has been engaged in restorative practice because our sixth graders became seventh graders and our fifth graders are now immersed in it. So a big difference that I've noticed is students reaching out for circles or reaching out and saying, I need a conversation, or, finding ways in using these practices to help them solve their own problems. So the impact now is building wide, where when we started last year, it was really more fifth and sixth grade. Oh man, I still keep go. Restore. So we have, we're working on building restorative corners. We're using some of our grant money, I believe, to fund restorative corners within the classroom. It is a space within the room to regulate, to take breaks, to get students to be able to take that few minute time and then go back into the classroom setting without having to leave the classroom, without increasing their levels in the classroom. It's a way for them to regulate. Teacher engagement is ongoing within the classroom. And we'll hit on the professional development stuff too. Crisis support and conflict mediation are ongoing. Administration engagement has really increased a lot this year at Roxboro Road Middle School. I know there's been some changes in that department, and really the way they've taken that on and their restorative approach with a lot of discipline measures or things that come across the table has grown immensely. Almost all students are engaged in some sort of a restorative approach for any discipline that comes across the table. So we're working on, for discipline, we're working on two things. We're working on expanding. We're working on a discipline committee to talk about what in-school suspension looks like and how we're going to change that in order to be restorative in ways and create a space that we can teach students some skills. That's really the ultimate goal. We're in the process of that. And we're also in the process of training a group of teachers, staff, counselors in restorative justice so that our re-entry and reintegration meetings are consistent throughout the building and hopefully expanding into in-school suspensions. So that way, as being one person, it's a lot to try to hit them all. So if we have a team of teachers and trained staff, they can take on that as well and also engage in more restorative justice meetings throughout the building in the year.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I think last year, as you started this work, there was a lot of misunderstanding about restorative and discipline, that the idea that there was no consequence. I wonder if you could speak to whether there's been a shift in the building this year.
That's a great question. I do believe that there has been a shift in the building. Obviously, consequences have to happen. There's certain offenses that consequences are exactly what has to happen, but then we're having that restorative conversation when they come back. I would say that the idea of what consequences are now is shifting a little bit, and what's really going to impact students and create the change that we need to see within the building. So yes, there are consequences, but there's also some things that we're saying, why are we doing that? What would be the most effective? A suspension may not be the answer there. This might be a better choice, or what can we do to repair that harm versus it, they leave and come back and we are not engaging in those conversations. So I would say the more that we have engaged in this work, the more that people and staff and students see it happening, the more that we're kind of taking those tides and turning them, and people are understanding what this work really means.
And you're seeing a change in behavior.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that restorative isn't in lieu of consequence. It's a partner. It's kind of like it's your special teams on your football team. These are the people that come in at the clutch and kind of help out. So you can't have one without the other. You shouldn't. The best practice is to have them work together. The impact at Roxboro Road, wow, only 4 months in, and this is what we've got so far. I'm just going to speak very specifically to a couple of the highlights here. The first is I want you to know that this listening circles has gone faculty wide in my building, which I think has helped a lot of teachers in their levels of how they're dealing with stressors, how they're dealing with changes, how they're being able to express themselves in a place that is safe and secure, where they can be heard and they can contribute. So those are huge. I've had 28 of those since September. The conflict corner, if you ever come on over, you all have an invitation. You can come over anytime. I'm the room with the lights in by the cafeteria. You'll know because they're all the beautiful, colorful lights in there. We have a conflict corner there. And the idea there is that teachers call me and say that they need me to cover while they deal with a student conflict, and they switch spots with me. And I go and I cover the class. And I love teaching the math stuff. I just want everyone to know that. And because that's the music teacher in me, that doubles in math. But the teachers then move the student or the students to the conflict corner, and they're able to have a very intimate conversation about how things get repaired at that point in the classroom, what the expectations are. And the student also gets a chance to also say, this is what I need. This is what I hope you can offer me as well. I passed out our big handbook that I'm really super proud of, and this is called Building Rocks. And this is a 10-day integration that our teachers participated in at the beginning of the school year. Basically, they said to me, yeah, Natalie, I'd love to do this. I'd love to see how 10 days looks. And so with the summer professional development that I offered, the teachers and myself put together these 10 days, 10 circles, lesson plans already done for them. They didn't have to do anything but follow the plan. It has the community building skills, it has the reflection skills, and it has an extension that goes into their classroom time if they choose it. Many of the teachers are coming back and they're like, hey, I'm doing lesson 5 again. Can you come back in? I want you to see what that looks like. So we're very excited about this. Next year, it's going to be even more super fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to that. I also want to say that this year has been wonderful because I've been able to work with the consultant teachers and our school police officer, who is wonderful. And we've been working specifically with our new teachers that are new to restorative practice. And it's been a wonderful partnership with the consultant teachers in our building, where we can sit down together and work on some strategies for those new teachers so that they can feel a little more confident, especially with the challenging students or the challenging behaviors that they're still kind of trying to figure out. And our school police officer he was in a circle with me today, and he's starting to learn the language as well. So it's really lovely to see how he's able to just so quickly and amicably shift and use the language and reinforcement that with the interactions in our building. Oh, I better do this. Yeah, okay. All right. So this, I think, is the most impressive piece that we wanted to share with you. And this is the district impact. This past summer, we did the introduction to restorative practice with the International Institute of Restorative Practice, our best practice training fulcrum. 81 participants in our school district took that training. We offered an administrative restorative practice training, as you can see, 30. The new teacher training was an exciting day. Loved it. 63 new teachers stepped into the pool. We had a teacher assistant training this year, and we've been asked to do it again. The I Am Restorative training, if you remember from our presentation last year, you saw at the end, I am restorative, I am restorative. Well, we continued that. But we had a wonderful turnout at Roxelle and Rox Middle School. We kind of ran into just some timing issues, I think it was, where it landed. No. Was it the technical issues? Yeah, something like that. We had a wonderful summer book read. We did Better Than Carrots or Sticks, and we had 12 participants there. Jordan and I are now officially trainers with IIRP, so we can provide training in district. The Mattydale market was a huge, huge hit, and we were able to team up with transportation. And I just wanted to share with you all that we are brighter together. Every building has had somebody in some type of our training since the summer. So it's catchy.
Can I also say something that I meant to say earlier, but I was so swept away? I think what's most exciting about this is that there's an organic piece to this, that as this work takes hold, it spreads. In fact, Natalie Jordan and I met with Kristen Hill at the junior high today to talk about a plan about rolling this work out at the junior high and starting with their BPT and their department chairs and their administrators. And so, and all of their building administrators have been trained in this. And so this is extremely exciting. And it also begs the question, we now have had students go through Roxelle, Rox Middle, they're headed to the junior high. How do we put ourselves at the ready for them? Because they're now used to restorative approach. Gillette has done some work in restorative practice as well. So this is growing, and when I say it spreads organically, this is not something that you turn on and off when you walk into the school. This is something that really impacts the way you move through the world. And so even when my wonderful husband and I have an argument, as rare as that might be, there are these moments where I'll say to him, or he'll say to me, how are we going to heal harm? And that's not language we have had in our relationship over the years. And so I say that because this is really an approach to how we interact with all people. And the fact that we can see it taking hold and evidence of it in places where it hadn't been before, and there isn't somebody specifically walking point on it, I think is probably what is most exciting to me about this. This is good for our kids, this is good for our staff, and it's good for our families.
What's the family response been like?
I think, well, the family response from the Mattydale market exposure that we did was wonderful. We were able to get families connected to things that maybe they didn't know were available. The community agencies that we have. I think that we're starting to see a lot of families really appreciative of the process and how we're starting to work with things. It's not that we're not holding anybody accountable, but we are showing that it's a partnership, especially with our families that are dealing with a lot of stressors right now, whether that be because of employment changes, the financial burdens that's coming along, even just changes in their own family dynamic. You know, the family component, I think our family engagement specialists could probably talk about that to a lot more. And I think our counseling teams in both buildings could probably allude to that a lot more. But it's been helpful, it's been meaningful. And again, there comes much later in the presentation here, but the invitation for you to come and see what that looks like, restorative is in how we receive one another. And I think that I think when you walk into Rox, either building, you see that from the moment that the buses come in and the parents are dropping students off to the moment that they pick the students up and leave. Jordan was with me today with a mom that had to pick up her son unexpectedly because he needed to go home for health reasons, and saw the conversation that we had. And I was working with the nursing team and the teacher to try to just let mom know, you know, here's our expectation. If the student is better for tomorrow, this is what we'll do. We'll come in and we'll pick up where we are. Sue was really disappointed that they were leaving school early because they were having such a good day and they're working towards one of those, you know, fantastic PBIS geared rewards. Yeah.
Just real quick in regards to that, I think that the feedback I've received is that parents are just happy to be part of the conversation, part of the process, really, when they're struggling with their child behaviorally specifically, and we're saying please come in, do this with us. We want to partner with you. We're here to help in building those bridges. I think that's had the biggest impact, at least in my role so far.
Yeah, and the communication piece around it too, where the parent now knows that you're part of their team. So if they see you, they want to stop you and just have that quick conversation and check in and say, you know, how are things going from your perspective as well? So very honest and authentic. Yeah.
Great to see the parents want to come in and contribute to the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, I think it's an important piece to have the parents come in too. And it's difficult sometimes to arrange, but we find a way to make it work. My fingers went through 2 slides here. So I wanted to talk to you about Tony Gay, who is he's one of the leading, how would you say, scholars right now in the restorative practice. You know, restorative practice is about reflection. And reflection is very much part of what makes restorative practice work. I mean, that's the whole reason why we have a reset meeting. It's the whole reason why we have a conflict circle. It's a whole reason why we engage and we have a conversation and we say, let's follow up in 2 weeks, like we're going to do with Kristen, and see where she's at and how she's thinking with things. And Tony Gay talks about this idea of reflection in action, on action, for, and with. And here's part of the hopes and dreams segment of our presentation. And you know, we're coming to the close here. So we kind of switched this, and I'm taking a little artistic license. And if anybody knows Tony, my apologies. But I did use him in my latest paper. So I had to cite his work. So here's our restorative in action. This is what's currently being done. This is a wonderful video that I don't think connects with this very well, but I think you have a link to the slides presentation where you can see this. The fabulous Alyssa Sullivan in a 2nd grade class. She has an ENL class. This was the 3rd day of school where she's setting up the ground rules for her community circles using the handbook, and talking about, you know, I think she was on lesson 3. Yeah, she's a wonderful teacher. If you've never seen her in action. Yeah, she's fantastic. She and Kate in that room this year, they're really a force of all things restorative. But it's in the relationships, it's in our vocabulary, and in how we all work together. And then restorative on action is what benefits when we do things restoratively. And you know that restorative practice is part of the SEL umbrella, and there's so many things that we're touching in on here. Restorative For Action is how we're making these changes and how they benefit us. And we're doing it everywhere. Jordan talked about it as to how it's starting to infiltrate the middle school, and how they view discipline, and how they create new teams and new visions for that. The intention and the meaning of, you know, why do we choose this consequence and not that? So our For Action is all about how we're making those changes. And also a big part of For Action is student voice. Student voice is an important part of that restorative practice. And then this is our with. You know, we have an opportunity as a school district to really be courageous. And I know I said this to you all last April, that we can become what everybody else looks to. We really can start to create the footprints that everyone else around us will want to walk in. And it's how we choose to lead with the tough stuff. This is tough work. It is part of the fabric of who you are. And when you do get that, that is the fabulous Joe Yeager, who also has a wonderful room that he works with Kristen Young. And if you have not come over, please do come over. And Joe right there is giving you a 30-second reflection as to from one of the lessons in the Building Rocks. They did sunrise, sunset, and he talks about how he had to lead the conversation in hopes to model what it would look like for the rest of the kids moving forward. And that has really taken hold. Over on the left, you'll see those are all our fabulous new faces with our new teachers from this year. And there's the parking lot, because the first question we asked them while we were having technical difficulties was, tell us everything you know about restorative practice. And I have that parking lot. I have that laminated for you all to see. It is one of our artifacts in all of this. We're collecting a lot of artifacts for you. It's really interesting to see and what everyone's experiences were from that. So our lens is, is very much about this quote, which I thought was from Cicero, but I have been told it's not from Cicero. So it was quoted wrong in the book that I took it from. But, we don't necessarily see things as they are, but as we are. Restorative is within you. And it's in your intention. It's how you invite people or include people into your thought process. It's how you share what you do. And then again, it's part of that reflection, oh gosh, what does that mean, right? We have an opportunity again, ladies and gentlemen, to be the fulcrum of everything that changes in this community, not only with all the exciting things that are happening around us economically and with opportunity, but we also have it because we're collaborative, we all have hope, and we're all dedicated. And we invite you to anytime come in and see us, to visit us, to be part of this, to include us, and to find us and seek us out should you want to talk about this even more in depth, where we can have a more intimate conversation. We're brighter together.
Questions?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
So it's 2 straight years you left me speechless. I just wanted to say, I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you. You guys make me wish I can start my classroom tomorrow. Because I've been subbing in Marcellus, I brought up restorative practice at least 100 times. And I've already had 3 teachers reach out to me and ask me to bring them more information. So and this is just wonderful. So thank you so much. And I will be 100% using this in 3 years when I have my own classroom. Thank you.
How you take this program and you reach well beyond the classroom and you bring it to their homes. And there's a page in here that says, think about how somebody else is feeling. Ask about how they're feeling. And there's so much in empathy that is not just a given. It needs to be taught, and you're going to that level and you're teaching life skills. It's wonderful.
Can I ask a quick question? First of all, I'm new to this and this is amazing. And I cannot wait to learn more about this. This is awesome. So right now it's just in both the Roxboro campuses and you're just moving to it to get bigger.
That's a great question. Right now, we have restorative practice specialists and family engagement specialists on the Rox campus. When I win the big lotto tomorrow night, I would love to fund. I think the dream would be to have a restorative practice specialist and family engagement specialist in every building. I think the reality is, how do we train and empower teachers and other staff members to be able to walk this work? Because ideally, this is all of us all the time. But we have really focused on that campus because it's our highest need campus. And I think it has, I think the relationship between the 2 buildings, and you chime in here, has really grown and flourished just with staff going into the buildings, and to really see when kids leave at 4th grade and they go to 5th grade, there's a handoff there that has always been pretty powerful. But there's more of a common language. And because all this work is trauma informed, and because we don't know what other people have experienced, I think it really creates some safety. And a huge shout out to the staff listening circles, because this year, even though things are better COVID-wise, it's not over. People are beginning, because I think things are better. I think people are emotionally starting to bring forth what they've held together the last couple of years. And so I think it's been extraordinary that we've had this safety for people to be able to work not only with kids, but with each other.
Because this seems like it could be, I know there's been challenges sometimes bringing the two middle schools together into the junior high. So this seems like something that could really, because again, as kids get older, obviously, sometimes the problems can be different.
I think that's absolutely spot on. And I've said this repeatedly, it's hard to hate close up. So when we know each other as people, those differences start to fade into the background and the commonalities come to the fore. And I think so many of the conflicts that happen, we're giving kids, I mean, I really appreciate what you said, Terry, in terms of skills, that we can't assume that everybody knows how to manage conflict or crisis or problem solve. And I think your point is really well made, that at those inflection points, when kids come together from both buildings, how do we give them a commonality?
Thank you.
Okay, wow.
Can I just, excuse me, Mr.
You can interrupt me anytime you want.
Not mean to interrupt you. I know that one of my esteemed colleagues is here tonight too, Dr. Roseanne Ferrara. And I just wanted to point you in the direction of her and having a conversation. She can talk about, we talk about the kids and the teachers. She can also talk about how we've been so very intentional with our families and making sure that when we have meetings that get to her level, what that looks like restoratively with the language, how we're helping families. I mean, I think, Roseanne, is it okay for me to say we've probably got like 5 or 6 families that we're working with quite intently, because the skill set still is developing. These are young parents that aren't really, they don't know how to advocate. They don't know how to ask questions. And that's the restorative work that perhaps goes to how we impact families. Mr. Marizio, is, we're doing it and creating these relationships. Sorry, Mr.
No, you're fine. You're fine. They get to hear me all the time. Not only is Miss Sullivan and Joe phenomenal teachers in that building, the entire staff, I've said this over and over, is just, they're different. They give, every staff is good in our school district, but it seems the one at Roxboro, and I would say the middle school too, put so much into extra things in the day. And this program is just marvelous. And I know the Rock Stars program is growing too. And that has students coming in early in the morning at the middle school, and at the elementary staying at 7 o'clock, because school now is becoming the community. We've talked about community schools. But one thing that I was really pleased at when Roxboro Elementary came was the math scores zoomed this past year. That just doesn't happen in a low socioeconomic school. It happens because of the love that you give to those students and the less discipline problems. I believe every student can learn. And when Nick came here to talk about math, he truly believes that every student in this school district can learn. And your program is going to put us on the beginning of our academics to start to go up. And so that everyone wants to come to North Syracuse. Thank you.
One last comment. Thank
No,
you for the
there'll be one
presentation.
last.
Thank you for the presentation. The program is solid, but I think it's more than the program. It's like what the people bring to it. And I could tell by your energy and excitement. I mean, I've, in my journey, have had these like great programs on paper, and they're research-based and they're everything, but it's the people who are invested in them and that are implementing it that are, going to have that off the ground. So I want to thank you for all that you're doing.
What I appreciate, and so many of you are saying it, that this is a labor of love. This is, you don't phone this in. This is people bringing their full selves because they want the very best for our kids. and each other as a staff. And it's astonishing, you know, when Jordan talks about students who are saying, I'm having a bad day, I need somebody to have a conversation with me, as opposed to, I'm going to go smash something or write on a desk or flip a desk. That's extraordinary. Like, it's extraordinary. So thank you for seeing it.
I had just a couple kind of quick questions. They're going to seem really, really pedestrian compared to all the great things you've heard here. Your parking lot, somebody changed the use of a parking lot. I just zoomed in to look at what was on there. Years ago, anybody know what CR 100.11 is? I bet you do.
I might.
Okay. Well, we had these shared decision-making meetings, and the parking lot was where you put
Mhm.
things that came up as obstacles
Yes.
that need to be addressed later. And this is not what this is at all. This is all positive attributes that people are seeing. So I just wondered, there's no answer here. I'm just babbling.
Yeah, I
Not really
want
a question. That's a whole different
yeah, I just want to,
understanding of what I thought a parking
Right.
lot was.
so, and this is part of the shift, right? So in education, we've always had
There are
these
no
obstacles.
you're telling me?
It's not about obstacles. It's not about obstacles, it's about opportunity now, right? And everything is, the focus now is the strength-based
Okay.
versus what would be the detriment, right? So when we go in and we start talking and we start working restoratively, we always hone in first on what's going well and what does that look like, sound like, and feel like, you know? So I just want to get that because I'm old enough. I know I don't look it, but I'm old enough and I'm really giving some personality tonight. I'm old enough and I remember that. And it was that we would sit there and go, what is not going well? You would just go right up to it. And we do. I think now in education, it's always about what are you taking forward?
No, thank you. That just caught my attention because I used to cringe at that term. And I was one of those that would put a lot in the parking lot and then would want to know why we were never going to the parking lot to address those issues. But thank you on that. But you know, in reality, obviously it's a shift in thinking for a lot of people. I mean, there takes time for buy-in. It sounds all great, but I mean, there's a lift that you have to go through and live through. Because I'm glad you addressed a piece about consequences. There are consequences. And I think a lot of people are used to things need to be punitive. And then we never restore. So I think there's a lot of hope here, but I do know it's, as you grow it in your conversation over here from building to building, it's a culture and climate shift. And so I don't have a question there. I'm just reflecting because I dealt with that at the end of, or when I was working and we were dealing with the resistant part, which was sad. And they did overcome it, maybe because I left, but that's another story. So thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to speak to that because we spoke about that today at the junior high. So let's say you and I, Mr. Farfalia, are students that go to the junior high. And let's say I poured juice in your locker and I ruin your coat. You know, old school, I might go to in-school suspension. With restorative and in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, that's easy. I can do that all day long as a kid. But to have to listen to the fact that maybe your parents had to work overtime to buy that jacket, and then to repair the harm, maybe I have to come up with half the funds to replace the jacket. I mean, you talk about a consequence. I might think twice. I think I would think twice before I go damage somebody else's property, because I'm not going to skate away. I'm going to have to deal with your feelings and I'm going to have to deal with the damage. And I think, you know, there's a whole big school of thought that between a feeling, you know, you have a feeling and you make a choice about your behavior, there's a minute, there's a pause, and that's where you make the decision. And it's in that pause that the whole future of a kid or anyone's life is determined. And so what we're really trying to help kids understand is that feelings are big and you have choice about what you do with them. So I can put my hand through the wall, or I could seek out Miss Branzi and say, please, I need to have a conversation with you. And that kind of discipline and skill, I think is needed. And I'm really excited about the
See,
possibilities.
somebody made a mistake in the beginning. They said, we're just having a conversation here. So now you're making me want to converse more and we probably need to get moving, but we get caught up in this business and having to measure everything. What are we going to measure now to see that we're succeeding? And there are obvious things to measure. You can measure, the incidence rate, the reoccurrence or whatever, the severity. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a different feeling in the building and in the whole atmosphere that I don't know how you put your finger on it. I don't know if you've seen that yet, or if anybody's sensed it, or is there a way to survey that?
If I can chime in,
Okay,
I think at the beginning of every single day, throughout the day, and at the end of the day, that culture, that feeling, you will see from as soon as the kids get off the bus. It is probably one of the few of the special buildings when you come in and if you've had a bad day, you are uplifted right from the start when you walk through the door. The people that are greeting the kids, every single one of the kids, they're greeting them by name. Someone knows who the students are. And I had a staff member say that they were kind of feeling down and they were getting to the front door and it immediately picked them up. And so that feeling, you could clearly see at all times.
Right. And I would just like to kind of tag on to what Mr. Bowles just said. I think the way that you measure this is not only in that there are some actual data points that we can start to do and to dive into, and we're looking at doing that this year to provide you something that is more, scholastically based so you can see it. But our big goal this year was that we wanted to make sure that every kid in both of our buildings was able to say to you, if they were walking up to you on the street and you asked them, who is your person? Every kid in the building has a person. Every student has a person, an adult in that building that's invested in them, that cares about them, that knows about them, that takes the time to be with them. And you think about that and we're like, of course the kid is going to say, the student's going to say their teacher. That doesn't always happen. And it's pretty eye-opening too, when the teachers get there and they realize, oh, nobody has a connection with so-and-so yet. And we start to talk about how that connection can be made and those type of things. And so, our big goal at Roxelle, and I know we've talked about this, we talked about this summer in our summer PDs, is to make sure that every student has an adult in the building that they feel comfortable going to. And I think if we can do that, we can start to change the fabric of this reactive, explosive mentality that seems so prevalent right now in our communities, in our society. And it's all about the fact that, again, you may have just put juice on my jacket, but you now know how hard my parents work for it. And you're probably going to say with me, my parents worked really hard to get me my PS4. So I understand that. And now we have that commonality. I think the movie was called Freedom Fighters. Is that the one where she has everybody stand up? They walk up to the line and they come back when they say something, the one with Hilary Swank. I just saw a clip of it. Yeah. Where she's like, do you know somebody that's been hurt by violence? And everybody comes up and all of a sudden the kids that don't get along start to see, I know 4 people, I know 5 people. And it's like, whoa, I have that connection with you that I didn't think I had before. So, I don't know, we're not going to be able to give you, like a report card, but we are always thinking about
and I don't
that.
need that.
Yeah.
I just think it's sad everybody else wants them. And it was a members only jacket, by the way. And you've reached the bar and exceeded it. So the next time you come back, now you have to go even further. Very awesome presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I have somebody's name on this one. Oh. Thank you. Okay, we are at the Comments from the audience, public participation piece of the meeting, but we do not have anybody signed up this evening. Okay, just a reminder that the Board of Education is welcome, always welcomes comments from the public. Please see our clerk about signing up by the Friday before the meeting. And as always, you can email us by emailing the district clerk, and the board will receive any communication. So I'm going to move on to Board of Education committee reports, and I will ask if we have a policy report here, or we have a meeting coming up, I believe.
Yes, our next policy committee meeting is Tuesday, January 17th. Look forward to it.
Okay, thank you. And legislative just met. Yes, sir.
Yes, the legislative committee just met on January 4th. And I thought it was an outstanding meeting. We had two people from the New York School Boards Association, Brian Fessler and Matt DeLoss. And I believe you all have received it. If not, Joe will make sure every board member gets it, because I believe in sharing everything. But they're talking about their priorities, and Don's talked about a lot of these. The foundation aid is the last year, and we want the money, that we deserve from the foundation aid, and looking at the formula. But some of the priorities, we're very interested. Teacher and staff shortages. We know about that. School safety, charter schools, school budget votes and elections, and one of my pet peeves, schools as polling places. So these things are looked at by the School Boards Association. And if you are interested, because I know our president will be doing it, there's a virtual Capitol conference on February 10th. I'll send you this information. You have received it through the school boards. It's in the morning. They give you bathroom breaks, snack breaks, but it's outstanding. The commissioner is there, representatives of Governor Hochul are there, and it really will tell where we're going with education. If you're interested, I'll be having leftover cookies and coffee tomorrow to listen to the governor's speech. In the afternoon, the governor will be giving her state of the state speech. I know crime and other things, but I will be listening to the educational part. What is she going to do for us for education? Which brings me to what I talk to you every meeting about. And Ms. Kramer, thank you for following through, is universal meals. I've asked you over and over. All you do is go in and press this little button and so forth. Well, we're getting there. Tonight, Senator Mannion was on TV just before Matt picked me up, and it is his priority. He stood before, it wasn't our school district, it was Pine Grove Middle School, and said, this is a necessity for the students of our state to have free meals at every level, at every school. So thank goodness to Senator Mannion and others, and we're going to keep pushing for that. The other thing is, Jill sent you something, and I know a lot of us work during the day, but we're having an OCM BOCES tour. It's on a Friday, I believe, February 3rd, from 8:30 in the morning to 12:30. And this year we'll be over to see the CTE program. This has really grown. The number of students that North Syracuse sends is wonderful, and other school districts are now doing that, and it's just we're running out of room, so things are going to have to be looked at. But also you'll get to go to the STARS program that you've heard about, the alternative program, and then we always enjoy Innovation Tech, where we meet with students and they tell us a little bit about why they go to BOCES and not to our school district, and there are many reasons. But this year the treat is lunch made by the students. There's going to be 3 entrees. I'm going to tell you, people, you've never seen anything like it. So if you can do it, I understand most of you work, but it's the time to go because the students are there. And so that is it. Sorry, I talked a lot.
Oh, thank you. Superintendent's comments.
Thank you. This Saturday, the district had the wonderful opportunity to host the all-county performances in orchestra, chorus, and band. I can't tell you the last time we have hosted this event, and it was absolutely amazing. The quality at all levels was just, you felt like you were at a professional concert in every aspect. And I do want to thank our staff that helped put this on. Danielle Rousa was the festival manager. John Harnoy was the chorus manager. Shannon Proctor was a chorus manager. Jen McDermott was a band manager, and Karen Siemens did concessions. So it was exceptional, and it was standing room only. Other things that are going on, scene-wise Scholastic Art Awards, Mrs. Blasky at the high school, we have 113 students that had some type of award. Very impressive as far as what they're doing, photography, drawing, mixed media, many different sculpture. So again, 113 students. This coming Thursday and Friday at our junior high school, Seussical the Musical will be performed. So again, our productions are top notch, and look forward to going to that. And the last announcement is having Lori Cook looking at, we have an kind of unknown kind of bright star in the North Star Network. We basically broadcast many of our events, and it's student led. And our students are doing play-by-play announcing of many different activities. And I've had other people in other districts comment because they do such a phenomenal job. And I just want to, again, they're going to be highlighted in our January newsletter. And if you haven't seen them or heard them, please take the opportunity to do so.
There's a special guest tomorrow, so make sure to tune into that one. It's me.
Okay, thank you. Board of Education comments, discussion. I thought I'd bring up, I mean, we had an emails going back and forth, Bob and myself, with regards to the policy on students, a student member or ex officio member of the board. I thought if there were any questions about what we've put out, we could discuss that here. Anybody has anything, or?
I think I was probably misinterpreted based on your comment, and I apologize because I believe in shared decision making. I mean, I went on strike for it in this district, and I think it came across differently. I was on the policy committee. I did lead it when Sandy DiBianco left the board. I worked on very difficult policies like homework. We had a subcommittee. I'm sure Mark has subcommittees, and we worked on that homework policy, which affected so many people, parents, kids. I also worked on the concussion policy in the school district and was involved with John Rice and worked with all those people. And one of the most important ones that's really affected us was the academic, when you don't pass and you can't play sports, and I can't think of what
Eligibility, yep.
yeah, and
Yep.
so I believe in all that. I just believe that this board needs to have a student on. I went through the whole list. Liverpool has a boy and a girl. FM has a girl. I just think it's a step forward. But I know it's got to go through policy committee, and I am for that, but it affects us directly. And I don't know if there are any board members that are opposed to it. So I would think the policy committee, whoever's on that, is relaying that to the entire committee that the board wants this. And the other thing is, I would meet with anybody on that policy committee to tell why I really think it's important. So I'm sorry for the email. It got misinterpreted.
That's fine. It's, I just wondered where the other board members were, because we hadn't talked about it extensively. So all I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I attended that one policy committee. I'm not on the policy committee, but there were questions that arose And I don't have the list of questions, but there are questions out there that I think need to be addressed by the committee. Terry, you're on the committee, Mark, Mike. And I'm sorry, I found out Amanda's supposed to be on the list, so we got her on the list, so she'd be on the committee also as we go forward. So I think that's the way we'll go, and I need to see what happens with those questions first. I don't know if those are going to be addressed at the meeting on the 17th or not. But I mean, that's where we are. I just wondered if any other board member, I don't know what I think now, to be honest, because I want to wait and see what the questions are and the answers are to those concerns.
Having a child's voice, as Bob said, is something that I'd like to have. How that's done, I'd like to hear more about what the other school boards are doing. But when you have a voice for the other kids, I think that helps them engage with each other and gather and form a committee of their own, so that because they have a voice at the table. How we do that, we have to, I think there were some valid questions on how do we do that? Do we have a different person? There were many different questions asked. And perhaps it's every year there's a different person, what might be the thing, because you need to stay organized. And if you keep changing the person, those are the type of things that we have to deal with.
And I just want to tell a little story here. I guess I'm selfish about this, because Mr. Bowles had a young lady come to him, and I had a young man come to me, and I said, I would take it to the board because that's my job, to take it to the board. I feel it's been a long time. That's how and it's just me. I'm one of those that wants something done yesterday. Can I tell the young man came to me and he said, Mr. Crabtree, I really wanted to participate, but I'm over that. He said, please try for the next class. So I'm over it. If we don't get it done this year, we don't get it done this year. It's a shame. We have some really, really outstanding seniors that are on his committee, that are on things that are with me. And it's just a shame it's bogged down. But I understand politics and I understand what's happening. So whatever happens, happens. And I'm sure the policy committee will bring it to us. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's fair that, you know, as it gets discussed further, to get a report back here as to where we stand on that.
I too think that right now we're not trying to bog, we're trying to organize, and we can't really do anything until we sit as a committee and talk about it again. It was talked about once. We're going to talk about it again and hopefully come to some arrangement. We just don't.
We met weekly and we worked on it. Working on monthly isn't going to get it done. So I would hope there's a subcommittee. That's what should be happening.
Okay. Yeah.
It's great suggestion. We have a meeting coming up very, very soon. So what is that, a week, 2 weeks? 1 week? Yeah, it's in my calendar. If I'm
Week
not
from
looking at my
tomorrow, 'cause
calendar, it
tomorrow's
doesn't
10
happen.
10 and 7 is 17 last I checked.
Yeah, so.
I did the old math.
Positive. Okay.
Okay.
So I would like to talk about our relay team, our girls relay team. I don't know if we realize that they own the national record for time, not just the state record. They own the national. These ladies, the 4 ladies that are on that team, I believe it's the 4 by whatever, are amazing. I did not know that. Also, I mean, this has happened to a lot of our sports, but Coach of the Year, football, David Klein. Thank you, David, and all your coaches and the young people. That is an outstanding recognition for our football team. But I want to piggyback on what Mr. Bowles said about the senior high all-county music festival. I only found out about it. And there's another thing here. We have to work on communication, letting board members know a little bit more about what's happening. But I found it in your North Star, whatever it is on the week. And I said, gee, I have never been to this. So I attended. We're lucky we had enough space. Dan was a little worried about that. I can't reiterate what Dan said. It was an orchestra that was amazing from all school districts, chorus and band. But two things that were emotional to me was, first of all, and I let Ms. Stanton know about this. Not Ms. Stanton, help me out. Director of Fine Arts.
Donna Marie Norton.
Donna Marie Norton. That there was a boy that was blind. He was in the second to last row, wasn't from our school district. He did not need, now these pieces that they're singing, right, Dan? They're professional songs that they're singing. He knew every word, and I don't even know the language that one of them was, if it was Latin or whatever. That's what it's all about. And then the band came on, and Dr. Jared Chase from Nazareth College, and you talked to Dr. Donna Marie about this Into the Silent Land. This was a piece written from somebody from Rochester, New York, for the 10th anniversary. I'm going to get emotional. 10th anniversary of what happened in Connecticut at Sandy Hook. This gentleman wrote a piece that was amazing, and these young people played it, could not hear a pin drop. Very emotional, and that we should never, ever, ever forget what happened that day. Thank you. I do get emotional. Thank you.
No, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion for consideration of the approval of the minutes of the meeting of December 19th, 2022. Motion from Xavier Moody-Wuzik, second from Dr. Kramer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. If I get a motion to place B, C, and D together, motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Ms. Kruger. We have B, C, and D together, the classification of disabled students for the committees, by the Committee of Special Ed for in-school, preschool, and home instruction. That's before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Business report acknowledgement. A motion, please, for that. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mrs. Grew. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, discussion action items. We have a resolution, which is a roll call vote for the approval of pilots for Verplank Road Solar. So get a motion to place that before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Ms. Kruger. Any discussion on this item? It was in Friday letter. We've heard about this before. Seeing none, Ms. Herrera? Aye. Aye.
No.
Aye.
Okay, motion's carried. Next, I need a motion to place the resolution, authorizing the capital project. A motion, place that before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Ms. Segru. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, I believe this is also a roll call vote. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried. Item C, acknowledgement of tax collection procedures. A motion, place that before us. Motion from Mr. Moody-Wuzik, second from Ms. Kruger. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. If I get a motion, I'd place D, E, F, and D through F together. Motion from Ms. Kruger, second from Mr. Thorne. All right, these are the positions that we've had discussed and we also had mentioned in the Friday letter. So we have D, E, and F before us. Any questions about those? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, those items are carried. Item G, approval of teacher lead evaluators. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Kruger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, item carried. Marketable, non-marketable surplus. Motion, please place that before us. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Segru. Any questions, concerns, discussion? I did skip it. Since I have a motion in front of us, so I think I'll take it out of order. Since we had the marketable, non-marketable surplus, any question on those? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Acknowledgement of gifts. A motion, please place that before us. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Dr. Kramer. We have that before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Those items are carried. Thank you. And retirement acknowledgement, I'll just pull that up here. We have two, significant number of years. Rodney Miles, automotive mechanic with 30 years of service. And Susan McCumber, English teacher, retiring with 20 and a half years of service. So I thank them for their service and wish them a long, healthy, happy retirement. And if I could get a motion to place instructional personnel report A before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Support staff personnel B, a motion, please, for that. Motion from Ms. Kruger, second from Ms. Segru. Any discussion there? Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And administrative personnel report C, please. Motion to put that before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Ms. Kruger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. I will make a motion for executive session. Ask for a second. The motion is to move into session for the purpose of reviewing two personnel matters with no action to follow, to receive an update on negotiations with the principal's bargaining unit with no action to follow, and to review one legal matter with no action to follow. If I can get a second. Second from Dr. Kramer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, we are in executive. Well, we need a motion to adjourn. We'll be going into executive session. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Mr. Thorne. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, we are adjourned at 7:18. Thank you. I can ask Joe a question. Oh.